Hello, Harry Winstanley for Online Flute Lessons here. Today we're going to be talking about the Boehm 24 Caprices-etudes, and we're looking at number 23 in G major. This study is really about lightness of touch and foreground and background. We want to also avoid uninvited accents. That's the real key things to take from this study. There's a lot of rippling motion in this. There's a lot of passage work. And often with that we want to let it fall into the background. We don't want to really hit every one of those notes really hard, otherwise it becomes a bit of an assault on the ears. So it's important to pick up on the important notes. So if we look at bar 1, for instance, we can see that it's just a building sort of arpeggio thing. Yum, mom, mom. Those are clearly the important notes here. And we don't always want to accent things and bring things out by putting lots and lots of emphasis on them. Otherwise things can get a bit aggressive sounding. Often the real key is to making everything else fall into the background a little bit more. So how do we do that? Well, apart from the yum, yum, bom, we've got this little rippling effect going on with the B, D and E. And we want that to have a real gentleness to it. That makes it fall into the background. Feels like a rippling effect, that we're not listening and stressing every one of those notes. How do we achieve that? Okay. Well, evenness, that's real key here. As I've said in other videos, the key to sounding virtuosic and sounding really fluid in your playing is getting evenness. Obviously, when you come to playing musically, we don't play anything. We don't play everything. Don't play anything. Don't play everything absolutely metronomically. Far from it. However, we do need to be able to play things really mechanically before we can put all the artistry in. So, looking at this rippling effect here, we need to make sure it's nice and even. And one really good way to practice playing things evenly is to play them in odd rhythms. So instead of going da 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 with semiquavers or 16th notes, we would turn them into a dotted rhythm. And then we could reverse that dotted rhythm. And actually, if we play those over and over, and then we can put it into even more discombobulating rhythms. What about quaver 2 semiquavers? That's 8th notes and 2 16th notes. Or we can go semiquaver, quaver, semiquaver, da 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 da, which is 16th, 8th, 16th, 16th, 8th, 16th. That's confused me, you see. Practicing these things in odd rhythms means that we're practicing playing some of the notes really quick together and giving ourselves time to think between other notes which are spaced out a little bit more. But as we do that in lots of different rhythms, we change around enough so that everything gets a chance to be practiced quickly and everything gets a chance to be practiced with a bit more thought, so that hopefully at the end of that we get something nice and even. This is a great way to learn passages of notes really fast. Take the tempo down, practice it dum da dum da dum da dum, or da dum da dum da dum da dum, or dum da dum da dum da dum, or just make up odd rhythms and stick to them and play them. You have to, I'm afraid it's a little bit mechanical to practice, but it's an excellent way to learn fast passages really quickly. So we've got evenness there. We also want to look at the tonguing. Now, obviously this study is full of these little duplets, and they're slurred across the beat rather than dia 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 dia. We got dum da yatta 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 ya. It's going to be a little bit tiring on the ear if that's always an accented feature. So actually what we want here is quite a soft tongue. We are tonguing, but I'm using a really gentle contact in there. When you're tonguing, have a think about where you tongue in the mouth. Do you tongue behind the teeth? Do you tongue further back in the palate? You'll find if you move the tongue around the mouth, it will change the quality of the note that you're articulating. And that's really good to have a good palette of that, because sometimes, for instance here, we want soft tonguing. Other times we want really, really, really hard tonguing that travels really well. So experiment with places in the mouth and experiment with the touch as well. It doesn't always need to be in fact, the more you can remove the part of tonguing, the better. We want the part. So don't let too much air build up behind the tongue when you're tonguing, especially when you want things to be softer. But actually, generally, try to be really careful with tonguing, not to let too much pressure build up behind the tongue. You need to be quite gentle in your approach. Gentle's a word that I use a lot. And yes, and here it gives us some nice soft tonguing. So we've got our soft tonguing and we've got it nice and even, so we now got a rippling, rippling effect, so that we can bring out the interesting notes and let the rippling effect fall into the background. We've got these leaps here. We've got a sixth, and then we've got an octave. This study is full of lots of leaps, slurred leaps as well, and they obviously are tricky. So how do we approach those without giving these uninvited accents, as I like to call them? Well, make sure that when you are slurring a leap, that you try to keep it to one event. We're not going ah, but we're going ha, 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 like throwing a ball down and letting it bounce up again. That's really important here, because otherwise we go which actually, as you can hear, slightly jars. We've got this really wonderful bucolic pastoral qualities of this piece, and then we've got these sudden things sticking out. Sounds almost sort of comedic. Okay, so try instead da. Give a nice amount of energy, a nice packet of energy to the bottom notes, because the bottom notes are always ones that are going to struggle to come out, and let the top ones be a reaction to the bottom notes. So try and keep octaves whenever you have to play them, or even bigger than octaves, leaps in general. Try and keep them to one event, even when those are tongued actually. Da da, da da. The more we can get into the habit when playing the flute of veering away from putting too much energy on top notes, the better. They sing out. They're the bane of our lives as an orchestral flautist. You're always being told shh when you're playing at the top. So getting a real habit of giving energy to the bottom notes and letting the top ones be a reaction to it, the better. I think that just about does it for this study, so happy practicing with it. There's lots to do in it, and it's a great one to get really characterful playing. If you enjoyed the video, which I hope you did, then do please subscribe to my channel, have a look at some of the other videos, and drop me a line if you fancy coming for a lesson. That's all for today, and I will see you soon. Ta-ra, happy practicing.